In my family, we don't tell ghost stories around a campfire. We don't have to. We have a real ghost. A quiet, patient specter that doesn't haunt houses, but minds. It's a genetic fog, a thief that waits decades, and then, when you're happiest, when you have the most to lose, it slips in and begins to steal you from yourself, one precious memory at a time. I was its unwilling witness. I watched it dismantle my father, a brilliant historian, a man who could recite the lineages of kings, until he was a gentle, smiling stranger who could no longer remember the names of his own children. My greatest terror has never been the thought of my own death. It's the thought of my own unraveling. For 10 years, my wife, Anna, has been my fortress against that fear. She is an archivist, a woman whose mind is a beautiful, flawlessly organized library. She is the keeper of our history, the curator of our shared life. She remembers the small, vital details that I, in my carelessness, let slip away. The name of the song playing on our first date, the ridiculous argument we had over a board game in our first apartment, the exact shade of dusky rose the sky turned on the evening I proposed. She is my memory. She is my reality. And for the last year, I have watched, in silent, stomach-churning horror, as she has either begun to lose her mind or has deliberately created a new one, a secret one, from which I am completely locked out. It started with a single, black, leather-bound notebook. It was always with her. It sat beside her plate at dinner. It rested on her nightstand while she slept. Its presence became a third person in our marriage, a silent, judgmental observer. She would write in it with a frantic, almost desperate intensity, her pen flying across the page. When I'd ask, she'd offer a vague, tired smile. Just thoughts, Mark, trying to pin them down before they disappear. An archivist's answer. I accepted it. For a while. One afternoon, I found a stack of them in a box at the back of her closet. 6 identical notebooks, already filled. My hands trembled as I opened the first one. I expected a diary, a chronicle of her days. What I found was a labyrinth. Page after page of dense, meticulous, impenetrable text. It wasn't prose. It looked like a complex code, a symphony of symbols, color-coded highlighting, strange abbreviations, and intricate diagrams that looked like family trees for ideas. My first thought was a cold, familiar dread. The fog. This was it. This was the beautiful chaos of a brilliant mind beginning to fracture. This was the ghost, finally arriving at my door, but for her instead of me. But as I spent hours poring over the pages, a new, more sinister interpretation took root. This wasn't chaos. This was order. A complex, hidden, perfect order that I was not meant to understand. My fear of her illness was slowly, poisonously replaced by the certainty of her betrayal. This was a secret language, and you don't create a secret language unless you have someone to share it with. I became a detective in my own home. Her long hours spent working on a new cataloging system at the museum became clandestine meetings. The dark circles under her eyes were not from stress, but from the exhaustion of maintaining a double life. I found receipts for expensive archival pens and specialized paper, extravagances that seemed absurd, unless they were for a project of supreme importance, a project that wasn't for us. The notebooks were her real life. I was just the quiet, oblivious roommate. I imagined a lover,
an academic, perhaps. Someone from her past who shared this intricate, intellectual world with her. I pictured them passing these notebooks back and forth, containing a life, a love, a conversation so rich and complex that it made our simple life of shared dinners and movies feel like a black and white photograph next to a masterpiece in vivid color. My love, the bedrock of my world, began to feel like a pathetic, childish thing. The final, brutal piece of evidence came last week. I took her current notebook from her bag while she was in the shower. I flipped through the pages, the strange symbols mocking me, and then I saw it. It was a diagram, a mind map. At its center was a single, devastatingly familiar phrase, the Sparrow Incident. It was a story from my childhood, a moment of deep, humiliating shame that I had buried for decades. The time I accidentally killed a baby sparrow, and my father, in his pre-fog lucidity, had found me crying and taught me a lesson about life and death. I had told this story to one person on this planet. I had told it to Anna, years ago, in the dead of light, in a moment of absolute vulnerability. And here it was, dissected, cataloged, translated into her secret, alien language. It felt like a violation of my very soul. She hadn't just been writing her story, she had been stealing mine. Was I just research material for her secret life? Was my pain just a fascinating specimen for her and her lover to analyze? That night, I didn't wait. I laid the open notebook on the kitchen table, the page with the Sparrow Incident staring up like an open wound. When she walked in, she knew my face, and she knew.
"What is this, Anna?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "This project you've been working on. Who is it for? Who are you sharing my life with? Am I just a character in a story you're writing for someone else? I need you to tell me, because the man who lives in this house, the man whose soul you've been cataloging in your little book, he deserves to know." She looked at the notebook, then at me, and the guarded, weary mask she had worn for a year didn't just crack, it disintegrated. Her face crumpled with a look of such profound, hopeless despair that it knocked the air out of my lungs. She didn't offer a defense. She didn't lie. She just collapsed into a chair, her body shaking with silent, racking sobs. The sobs of someone who had carried an impossible weight and had just dropped it. "There's no one else," she finally whispered, her voice a raw, broken thread. "There was never anyone else. It was always for you. It's all for you." And then she told me the truth. Not about her secret, but about mine. 3 months ago, I had a routine physical. Anna had gone with me. She had mentioned my father's history to our doctor. He had recommended a new, highly advanced neurological scan, a preventative measure. I did it and forgot about it. The results came back to her. The ghost had arrived. The fog was here. The scans had detected the definitive, early-stage biomarkers of the same hereditary, early-onset Alzheimer's that had stolen my father. The progression was, at present, microscopic, undetectable in my day-to-day life. The doctor's prognosis was a cold, clinical certainty 5, maybe 10 years of clarity before the fog would begin to noticeably descend. It was a death sentence with a long, slow execution.
She didn't tell me because she knew me. She knew that my fear of this disease was a monster I had kept chained in the basement of my mind my entire life. To tell me would be to let that monster loose. It would be to turn my last 5 good years, my last lucid years, into a prison of terror and dread. So she made a decision. She would stand between me and the monster for as long as she could. She would give me the gift of a few more years of peace. And the notebooks, the code, it was her impossible, beautiful, heartbreaking plan. It was not a secret language. It was a lifeline. She, the master archivist, was undertaking the most ambitious archival project in human history. She was trying to archive a soul. My soul. She was documenting everything, every memory, every story, every shared joke, every whispered confession, every scar on my heart. The complex symbols were her own invented shorthand for emotions, for context, for sensory details. The smell of the rain on the day we had that fight, the taste of the salt in the air on the beach where I proposed. The diagrams were mind maps to show how one memory connected to another. The Sparrow incident wasn't a violation. It was the cornerstone of a section labeled How He Learned to Trust.
She was building me an ark, a fortress of memories written in her own hand to give to me when mine were gone. Her exhaustion was the crushing, monumental weight of a one-woman race against time, trying to save a universe before it fades to black. She was building a library of me, so that the man I am destined to become would never have to be a complete stranger to the man I once was. I stood there in the silent kitchen, and my entire world was reduced to ash. The woman I had accused of the ultimate betrayal had been committing an act of love so profound, so fiercely selfless, it bordered on madness. She was watching the man she loved slowly beginning to dissolve, and her response was not to run, not to grieve, but to fight, to build, to write. I walked over to her, my legs unsteady. I gently took the notebook from the table. I sat down beside her, and I picked up the pen. "Okay," I whispered, my voice thick with a love and a sorrow so vast it felt like it could fill an ocean. "Tell me about the first time you knew you loved me. Start from the beginning, and don't leave a single thing out." The fog is coming. I know that now. But when it arrives, it will find us ready. It will find a lighthouse in the heart of the storm, a library in the middle of the wasteland, built by the love of a woman who refused to let me disappear.